good evening, everybody. Welcome to the Daiwa Anglo-Japanese Foundation, and thanks particularly for making it on such a snowy day, and I hope we all get home in one piece. So just before we start, I have to do my housekeeping announcements. The first one is if the fire alarm should go off, please don't use the lift. You should go down the stairs 2 floors out the front door, and we should congregate on the park side of the street. It'll be freezing if we have to do that, but the fire alarm hasn't gone off for quite a long time, so I'm hoping that's not likely. And the second thing is please don't leave any valuables in our cloakrooms downstairs. Nobody is monitoring those. So I think we're in for an interesting evening. The subject is Goze, who were blind female shamisen players in Japan, and sadly the last of them died in 2005. But our speaker, Kojiro Hirose, is going to tell us about them. He is an associate professor at the School of Cultural and Social Studies at the Graduate University for Advanced Studies. And he is also an associate professor at the National Museum of Ethnology in Osaka. And he's been working in recent years particularly on making museums more friendly to visually impaired people by having tactile exhibits. I think that's probably all I need to say by way of introduction, so I'll pass over to you, Hirose-sensei. I think he's going to start by showing a short DVD.
Yes, yes.
Is that on here?
Then, yes. Hello everyone. My name is Kojiro Hirose. I'm from Osaka, Japan. And last week I arrived here, and fortunately no jet lag. And this week, this Thursday, I go back to Japan. So tonight, this will be a great opportunity for me to talk to you. And I'm very sorry. First of all, my English is not so good. Especially my pronunciation is very, very typical Japanese style. So some parts you don't understand my English. And later I accept all kinds of questions, but please ask me easy questions. And first I'll show you DVD. This DVD was a TV news program broadcasted in 2014, I think, and 4 years ago. And this DVD is mainly about my work at the museum, and also the history of Goze. And 4 years ago, I was in charge of making exhibition about Goze. And this DVD document is explaining about my field work. So first, I'll show you. Sorry, wait a minute. Sorry, please wait a little bit. Okay, let's start.
日本に存在した目の見えない女旅芸人ゴゼの足取りを探し求めています。調査で使うのは視覚以外の感覚。指先が記憶を掘り起こします。
ではアンカー剤です。目が見える人は普段かなり視覚に頼って生活しています。しかし視覚以外の感覚を鋭くすると新しい世界が広がるかもしれません。
大阪の民族学博物館に勤務する文化人類学者広瀬幸次郎さんは目が見えません。博物館では触ることを楽しんでもらう展示を担当していますが、先日日本の古い芸能の研究のために雪の新種を訪れました。盲目の文化人類学者広瀬幸次郎さん。勤務先まで1時間ほどの道のりを一人で通勤しています。
ここで実は杖の音の変わるんですね。それはこの辺から響き出して、それは上に橋があるからで、
音の反響を聞き分け、空間の広さを把握します。これが目印ならぬ耳印となって広い公園の中でも迷いません。広瀬さんは体全体で世界を認識しています。
風の開ける感じ、割とだから左側が僕は3日もそうですけど、開けて広い場所に出たなっていうのがその風の流れで分かる。
広瀬さんが失明したのは13歳の時。視覚を失い落ち込む中、ある出会いがありました。
まあ一番大きなやっぱり展示ですね。その触るっていうことにこう開眼するっていうのはちょっと文学的な表現かもしれないけども、気づくっていうきっかけになったっていう意味では新しい世界との出会いだった。
その後展示受験者で初めて京都大学に合格。広瀬さんは見えないことを逆に生かして触覚による研究を進めてきました。民族学博物館に入ってからは世界を触ると名付けた展示をスタートさせました。
うまく音が出ませんけど、これもちろん
広瀬さんが提案するのは触って感じることの面白さ。
もっと大きな楽器が
視覚優位な今の社会への問いかけです。
上からこう触るとずれる。触ったら分かること、気づいた人。
形は触ったら分かる。
形は触ったら分かる。
形は触ったら分かる。触り心地とか、ダラダラしいところ。
ちょっと考え方を変えると、目が見えない人っていうのはみんなが今日アイマスクしていろんなものを触ったように、よりその触るとか音を聞くっていうことをたくさんしている人たち、そういうふうに考えることもできるんじゃないかなと思います。
見えないことは本当にマイナスの障害なのか。長年抱いてきた思いを広瀬さんは4月からの展示で表現したいと考えています。選んだテーマは盲目の女旅芸人ゴゼです。ゴゼは三味線の弾き語りで農村を渡り歩きました。視覚障害の女性の自立した仕事として長野や新潟では昭和の中頃まで受け継がれていました。 ゼが奏でる民謡や物語に農村の女性たちは涙したといいます。すでに展示する資料は集まっていました。しかし広瀬さんはまだゴゼ歌の本当の魅力が実感できていませんでした。
ただゴゼのものを触って音を聞いてっていうだけじゃなくて、そこからこう何かをやっぱり感じてほしい。ゴゼの立場で僕が何かを伝える、雪の中を旅したってこともあったと思うんですけど、そういう体験を自分自身もしてみて、そこからこう伝えるものっていうのがおのずとこうものをただ並べるだけとはやっぱり違ってくると思うんですよね。
長野と新潟の県境にある栄村秋山郷。今もゴゼの文化が色濃く残っている地域です。
音静かですね。何にも聞こえないですね。
一面の雪景色は広瀬さんにとって音のない世界でした。
京子さん、すいません。今日はよろしくお願いします。
こんにちは。お世話になります。
調査に訪れた広瀬さんを秋山郷の人々はねぎらい歓迎してくれました。
すいません。よいしょ。お邪魔します。
福原健一さんの家ではゴゼが来るたびに宿を提供しました。彼女たちが来ると村は一変したそうです。
若い時鍛えた人はね、今日はゴゼ来たから来てくださいって言うんでさ、だからそうやってやって、その前にはまたゴゼさんは門付きで村を困ってあるから皆さん来てください、そういう言葉も出てるからさ、結構集まるんですよ。
すぐに村人が何十人も座敷に駆けつけました。
とにかくね、知らない土地に行ってすぐにその、村の空気っていうかね、そういうのを感じ取って、そして楽しませてくれる。
ゴゼさんでも来なきゃこの地方にさ、そういう娯楽店がないから、だから地元の人も喜んでさ、
あの子よい子だ、あの子とそうたなら3年三月でもなるだけ。
わずかに見える先導役がいたものの、盲目のゴゼにとって秋山郷までの険しい山道は命がけだったはずです。彼女たちは何を求めてここへ来たのでしょうか。その思いをなぞるように広瀬さんはゴゼの泊まった宿を触り、歩いたであろう道をたどりました。広瀬さんの問いに答えてくれたのが94歳の山田義輝さんでした。
毎年来てたんですか？
毎年。それでね、大体お盆頃とその中から8月9月の頃余計来てたね。だからそのゴゼさんたちもここまで来るにはやっぱり気持ちの問題なんだね。骨を折ってきてもみんなが喜んでくれるのが何よりも金はさ欲しいぐらいねえけど、何よりもありがたいっていう、今度あれやってくれや、またこれやってくれや、また来らっしゃいとかさ、そういうふうになんていうかな、言葉とか金に合わせられてまた親しみっていうかね。
勢であり村人の心っていうのが本当に触れ合う場として、ゴゼ宿での演奏っていうのがあったと思うんですね。してあげる、してもらうとかっていう単純な関係じゃなくて、お互いに作用し合って影響し合っていく、その中でゴゼ歌っていう何百年も続く文化が生まれてきたっていうことを改めて今回現地に来て、確認することができ、
研究室ではあまり魅力が感じられなかったゴゼ歌。広瀬さんは秋山郷の資料館で聞き直してみることにしました。
こちらだと割と優しく広がっていって吸収されていくような感じがしましたね。平等にゴゼさんが発する音に、聞いてる人たちが包まれて、僕自身がイメージできた世界っていうものを、追体験って言ったらあれですけども、来館者の方にも伝えて、一緒のものを感じてもらえた。
博物館ではじっくり解説を聞いてもらった後にいろり端でゴゼ歌を聴いてもらおう、広瀬さんはそう決めました。触れること、聞くことを通してゴゼが秋山郷で感じた心が伝わることを期待してい
ます。なるほど。実際に物に触れたり耳を澄ましたりっていう感覚って大切にしたいです。鈴木さん、今 VTR をご覧になってどうでした？いや。
Special clap for Linda who was translating that poem to me.
Yeah, thank you very much. And from now, I read my paper, and this paper is divided 3 parts, and each part touching the sound and touching the heart, and I forgot. Touching the color, yeah. And each part, I'll let you listen Goze songs or Biwa Hoshi, blind male musicians' music. Okay, let's start. A Goze refers to a blind female musician who traveled around Japan with shamisen. Shamisen is Japanese cracked string instrument. Although the associations of the blind musicians existed widely throughout the country in the early modern period, from the late modern period onward, only a handful of associations, such as the one in Takada and one in Nagaoka, continued to exist in Niigata Prefecture and engaged in the group activities. Niigata Prefecture is a northern part of Japan, and it's very cold and lots of snow. But I think it's very London is more cold. With the passing of Haru Kobayashi, who was known as the last Goze, the culture of Gozes that had been maintained by visually impaired people disappeared completely from Japanese society in the 21st century. In the 1970s, the history of Gozes, who possessed valuable intangible cultural properties, and the actual condition of their lives were broadly introduced through novels, such as the one written by Tsutomu Mizukami and the paintings by Shinichi Saito. However, nowadays, there are few young people who know about their existence. Previously, the Goze issues were often discussed in the context of melancholy and tragedy, such as a disabled female who embraced life enduring discrimination, or a lonely musician who was forced to continue traveling with a physical handicap. After the World War II, with the expansion of the welfare service for the disabled and the enhancement of education in schools for the blind, their culture came to be recognized as the relics of the pre-modern times, and the fact that there is no successor for it is also considered as the inevitabilities of history. To be sure, even if they became the full-fledged Gozes after ascetic training for many years, they tended to be in unstable living situations. It was not unusual for them to spend more than 300 days a year traveling. In addition, it is believed that there were many Gozes who fell dead on the street or from an accident during their journey. It is gratifying that the visually impaired go to universities as a matter of course, and they have more career choices than ever before, though gradually. However, would it be okay that the Goze culture will be forgotten completely? Today, I would like to focus on the hands of a Goze and approach the relevance and the possibility of the Goze culture from three different angles that are touching the sound, touching the color, and touching the heart. Taking a hint from the Goze uta, Goze folk songs, which Gozes created and spread as their own oral traditions, I intend to clarify the role that the tactile culture of the visually impaired should play in today's society. Okay, now, first Goze song is sung by Haru Kobayashi. As I mentioned, the last Goze. Unfortunately, she died in 2005 at the age of 105, so quite long. And this CD is a typical Goze song by Haru Kobayashi. And this song, when Haru Kobayashi sings this song, she is over 80 years old. I think 88 years old. So quite old, but very active and very strong voice. Maybe a little different from Western style, but it's a typical traditional Japanese style damigoe, very, very strong voice. So please, number 2. Thank you. Even for Japanese people, it's difficult to understand the meaning of the song because, as I mentioned, Haru Kobayashi was 88 years old, so maybe she has very, very few tooth. It's difficult to understand, but you can feel the power of her voice. Yes. Anyway, so let's continue. The first part, touching the sound. At my DVD, there are many Goze songs, and those songs were sung by Kikue Sugimoto, another Goze, And I'll talk a little bit about Kikue Sugimoto now. Kikue Sugimoto, who was the last Oyakata master of the Takada Goze, and was also designated as an important intangible cultural asset holder, continued her journey as a Goze even after the war, stating that she did not know other means of living. After being retired from the journey, she spent her quiet late years with two of her disciples at her home in Takada. By the way, Sugimoto is the last Goze of Takada, and Haru Kobayashi was a Nagaoka Goze. Takada and Nagaoka is located in same prefecture, Niigata prefecture, but very, very far distance. Anyway. It was after 1965 that she was picked up by the media and began to hold recitals in Tokyo and other places. Her last words shortly before her death were, "I've already forgotten the lyrics of the songs. There is no point in living." For Sugimoto, who became blind in her childhood, her vocation as a Goze must have been the ultimate one, and there was no alternative but to work as an itinerant musician. With the earnest attempt by Sugimoto and many other Gozes towards the hard work and training, acknowledging that there was no other choice, the Goze songs have been inherited. Gozes in the early modern period composed a variety of the Goze songs by reconstructing the raw materials, such as Sekkyobushi, sermon ballads, and Joruri. Joruri is a dramatic recitation accompanied by a shamisen. The narrative prayers called Saimon Matsuzaka, traditional Japanese style of instrumental music for the koto, and kudoki, oral recitation, are regarded as representatives, and they involve recitation of long narratives to the accompaniment of a shamisen. The Goze songs were handed down from the masters to the disciples from their hand to hand. A master took her disciples' hands into her own from behind and taught how to play the shamisen. Their hands became deformed and stiff by holding plectrums for many years. From their highly trained hands and fingertips, the sounds with fine variations in intensity, tune, pitch, and length continued to be spun. The narration of a Goze without words was passed down from mouth to ears through the sense of touch and hearing. It is truly marvelous that they should have memorized a long list of narratives by immersing themselves to the task and by telling themselves that there was no other way of living. Furthermore, they changed the narrative styles flexibly, according to the needs of the audience. The Goze songs abounded in ingenuity, improvisation, and repetition, here and there, in order to attract the audience. Although there is a widespread notion that Goze songs are gloomy and sorrowful, in reality, they often incorporated popular songs and comic stories with ingenuity to bring further entertainment to the parties. Rafkario Han, the Japanese name is Koizumi Yakumo, who listened to the Goze songs in Kobe during the Meiji period, wrote his impressions as follows. I've never heard anything as beautiful as their songs. In the voice of a Goze, all sorrows and beauties in life and all pains and pleasure were vibrated. Han, who did not understand Japanese fully, declared that the true nature of the Goze songs was the vibration. In the original text, he used the word thrilled and quivered. Probably Japanese people before the Meiji period appreciated the Goze songs as a pure vibration of a sound, reverberation, transcending the language. A wide range of repertoire of the Goze songs were imprinted in the bodies of blind women as reverberations in a 7-5 syllable meter or the sound in a 7-7 syllable meter with rhythm and melody by using the movement of their hands. In addition, the sound of the Goze songs that were incorporated into the heart of the listeners also contains power to touch their heartstrings. Where does such power come from? As can be seen in the quote of Sugimoto and from the sharp insight by Han, the Goze songs were not simply the music, but the life of Goze itself. Sugimoto also said, I am happy. I can do everything in old age and in the dark. The sense of touch was considered the most important sense in her daily life. Being good at sewing, it is said that she could thread a needle in no time using her lips and tongue. Her house was always spick and span because she never failed to clean the floor. At meals, while traveling, she always made sure there were no leftovers on her plate, using her fingers with dexterity. The hands of a Goze often functioned better than the eyes of sighted people. A Goze song was composed of the voice of a blind woman and the sound of a shamisen on the surface. However, behind this auditory information, there was the reverberation of the life of a Goze, different from the sighted people. The power of the Goze songs created by using the body sense other than a sense of sight, that is to say, every skin sensation of the whole body, attracted the sighted people who tend to rely solely on their eyes. The characteristics of the performing art by Goze, who created the original reverberation with all their strength and heart, could be described as touching the sound. Okay, second part is touching the color. By the way, I'm totally blind and I understand the situation of Goze, but big difference is my house is always dirty. I don't clean every day. Anyway, second part, touching the color. Chikuzan Takahashi, who gained considerable popularity as a Tsugaru shamisen player, said as follows. Chikuzan Takahashi is also a blind musician. I want to produce a sound that can evoke tangible images by listening to it closely and express a clearer, brighter, and a bigger world than the visible world. Takahashi adhered to the sound representing Tsugaru, just listening to the sound played by a Tsugaru shamisen, and polished his artistic skills all of his life. It is a well-known fact that the history of Japanese music has been supported by the numerous visually impaired people. The blind musicians created and nurtured the original melodies during the course of pursuing the world with no visual sense. It can be said that, like the Tsugaru shamisen played by Chikuzan Takahashi, the Goze songs also belong to the same line of the blind music. To begin with, the tale of the Heike Monogatari, narrated by Biyahoshi. Biyahoshi is a Japanese lute-playing minstrels, which is the origin of the performing arts of the blind, was established on the basis of the narration provided to propitiate the departed souls of the Taira family. In historical materials, it is recorded that the blind women in the medieval times, considered as the roots of Goze, told the story of the tale of Soga Monogatari, with the accompaniment of a tsuzumi, Japanese hand drum. The tale of Soga was also a performing art in the medieval time on the subject of the memorial service for the departed soul. The afterworld, controlled by the departed, was a familiar existence for Japanese people in the pre-modern times that could be said to be the source of the world with no visual sense. Okay, here I let you listen one more music. It's a Heike Monogatari, as I mentioned, played by Biwa Hoshi. Biwa is another Japanese traditional instrument. And this Heike Monogatari is born around 13th century. So it's a kind of a medieval music. So little different from shamisen music. It's a 17th century music. So Heike is a little older than Goze uta. Anyway, so please listen. Number 4, please. It's a sound of biwa. Thank you very much. This traditional song and narrative is was very popular among Japanese people in medieval age, like 13th and 14th century. And today, even young people know Heike Monogatari, created by Biwa Hoshi. Anyway, this song was a little slow and gloomy, but it's an original form of Japanese blind music. Okay, continue. The indispensable element to add reality of the world with no visual sense to the Goze songs must have been the travel. Kikue Sugimoto traveled around villages in Niigata Prefecture and Nagano Prefecture repeatedly every year and gave a performance at various Goze yado, places provided for Gozes to stay. While she commented positively about a trip to Nagano, that the wind was wonderful, that made me feel as if I saw greenery with my eyes. She always had a harsh experience of walking up the mountain in a snowstorm. It was common for the landowners of the respective villages to provide accommodation for Gozes. But welcoming the Gozes visit and preparing a place for them to give a recital became an economic burden on the part of the landlord. For this reason, providing accommodation for Gozes was considered a privilege as well as a kind of obligation for the landlord. The decline of landlord due to the land reformation in 1947, which resulted in the decrease in the number of Goze yados, became a factor for the demise of the Goze's travel. As Chikuzan Takahashi stated his thought about his kadozuke is a performing in front of the gate of houses, that I never thought I had a hard time. I just walked because I had no money. There is no doubt that the travel was a last measure as a last resort to obtain food and money for the male blind art performers. On the other hand, the journey of Gozes was an indispensable element to develop and nourish the Goze songs. Gozes encountered the world with no visual sense through traveling and converted their feeling into the songs by their rich imagination and creativity. In general, Gozes traveled in a small group of 3 to 5 people. Leading the group was a sighted woman called Tebiti, Gaido, or a partially sighted woman followed by the blind women. They carried a stick in their right hand and walked in a single line, each putting her left hand lightly on the baggage of a person in front of her. Even today, when more than 2 visually impaired people walk together, they tend to walk in single file in a train formation, standing abreast in a rank leads to increased risk of running into obstacles. So it is the wisdom of living to move ahead in a single file. By sensing the subtle movements up and down or sideways of the shoulders or luggage of the person walking in front of you, you can aware the uneven surface and the change of course. The scene of the blind people traveling long distance in a group looked mysterious and had quite an impact for the sighted people. Gozes were awed as secret visitors from the world with no visual sense. The cases where Gozes played active roles in practicing a folk religion in connection with the wishes for curing of diseases, abundant crops, sericulture, and easy delivery, etc., are too numerous to count. The Goze songs were not confined to the level of the popular entertainment, but they played complicated and unique functions. It was also common practice for Gozes to make great use of their sense of touch while they were traveling. They gained an understanding of their surroundings by their skin sensation throughout the body. Although they could not see the actual sight, they could visualize the scene in their own way. The facts we see with our sense of sight only represent the part of the objects. Gozes closed in on the essence of the things and the truth of the world with no visual sense by a different pathway from the sighted people. As Sugimoto said that I felt as if I was seeing the greenery, the accumulation of numerous actual experiences added width and depth to the Goze songs. At a time when there were no TVs, radios, and the internet, what one saw in the actual life was limited. The majority of the sighted people who were the listeners of the Goze songs seldom set out on a journey and spent their lives without leaving their villages where they were born and raised. It was the role of a Goze to provide various knowledge and comfort to these settled people. The information brought to people by Gozes covered a wide range of topics, including legends, old stories, regional history, and incident in the nearby villages. On the whole, the Goze songs was a powerful tool to make people feel as if they were able to feel the world with no visual sense. Not only did Gozes serve as messengers from the world with no visual sense, but they were also producers who gave the sense of actually seeing the truth that the sighted people had not seen before. It would be fair to say that the sensitivity capable of feeling the unseen world as if you were seeing the world can be rephrased as touching the color. So last section, maybe I need 5 minutes. Is it okay? Sorry. So last part, touching the heart. As you can see from the previous description, the true nature of the Goze songs can be summarized in the 2 words, touching the sound and touching the color. The appeal of touching the sound and touching the color was cultivated and reproduced by the efforts of Gozes, and more importantly, the Goze songs served as a trigger for the sighted people, the listeners, to share the dynamics, reverberation of touching the sound and touching the color. The audience of the Goze songs felt the reality of the world with no visual sense and relieved the training of touching the sound and the travel of touching the color. That is why they supported Gozes by a tacit spirit of mutual assistance, even under the harsh living environment in the pre-modern times. Akiyama-go, Nagano Prefecture, as I showed DVD, Akiyama-go, which is famous as a rarely visited region in Japan, also received a regular visit from Goze until the 1940s. It is said that every year in September, Gozes stayed at the different villagers' houses and enjoyed joining in the village festival. An old man in his 80s who listened to the Goze songs in person said in retrospect, "I am thankful to Goze-san for coming all the way to visit with us in Akiyama-go. They are really respectable. The hospitable welcome from the villagers must have amplified the vitality of Gozes, who headed toward Akiyama-go by walking up the tortoise cliff path. The culture of Gozes was a grand attempt by the blind women and the sighted people who went hand in hand together to make contact with the world with no visual sense. It can be said that the Goze songs are the art of the sense of touch, which integrate the skin sensation of the performers and the listeners. The Goze songs bring a comfortable feeling without the self-other distinction and put the listeners in a trance state. It is no coincidence that the impression and appreciation of the audience were expressed by the bodily reverberation, including hand claps and applause. What is realized in the trial and error process of touching the sound and touching the color is the equal relationship between the blind people and the sighted people. The culture of Gozes can be defined as the blind people's positive contact with the sighted people and the interactive communication of touching the heart. The modern period is the times when vision is dominant. To visualize the world with no visual sense by science is glorified as progress. In the advanced information society in which a slogan, the faster, the more, the better, is called for, the world with no visual sense came to be considered less serious. The bearer of the performing art of the blind are aging, and even in the field of education of the schools for the blind, the history of beaver-playing minstrels and Gozes are lost in oblivion. Another type of occupation which was established in the Edo period, 17th century, was massage, acupuncture, and moxibustion. In Japanese we say sanryo. The so-called sanryo, 3 therapies, is a manipulative therapy that examines the inside of the body, invisible world, on palpation using fingertips and palm. At schools for the blind after the Meiji period, the teachers have instructed people with visual impairment on the techniques of sanryo. Surely, there was a transfer of culture from hand to hand. In recent years, due to the international trend of the inclusive education, quite a lot of children with visual impairment choose to attend a normal school instead of going to schools for the blind. If we aim to substantiate the inclusive society, maybe we should actively encourage people with visual impairment to attend a normal school. However, it should be noted that the schools for the blind have functioned as basis for handing down the tactile culture of people with visual impairment from the past to the future, since they were established. The blind schools in Japan have maintained the aspect of the schools for the blind, as well as the tradition of the schools of the blind. following the recent policies worked out by the Ministry of Education, Culture, Sports, and Technology of advocating the philosophy of special needs education. The name of the schools for the blind throughout the country was changed to the schools with visual assistance. As a proverb says, names and natures do often agree. The schools with visual assistance focus on the education of complementing the deficiencies of the children with visual impairments. There is no place for consideration for teaching students the art of living without vision and the secret of touching the sound and touching the color. The one-sided idea of assistance involves risk of running into the logic of the strong that the majority sighted people teaches and assists the minority, people with visual impairment. With the disappearance of Goze and the seeming arrival of the welfare society, where the rights of the people with disabilities are guaranteed, it is surely high time that we imagine their songs and reconsider the significance of the Goze culture of touching the heart. Okay, that's all. Sorry, take a long time.
Well, thank you very much, Professor Hirose, and we're going to open the floor to questions. And maybe I'll just kick off by asking one quite obvious question. Why were the Goze all women, and were there also male blind shamisen players operating separately?
As I mentioned, in 10th century, blind male musicians appeared, and they made a kind of guild we call Todoza. And this guild was all members are male. And under the influence of male musicians guild, blind female musicians made also guild. It's called Goze. Goze Nakama. Nakama means peer. And it's around 14th century. So first male guild and then female guild. And basically in the Edo period, 17th to 19th century, the guild separate, but they have a strong influence each other.
Okay. Right, who else would like to ask a question? Yes.
I would like to ask a question I would like to ask a question about blind musicians today in Japan, and do they have regular employment or paths of career?
Unfortunately, for example, I graduated from schools for the blind in Tokyo. It is the biggest school for the blind in Japan. And in 1980s, our school for the blind had a special training course for blind musicians. But the number of students decreasing. Because, as I mentioned, recently, many blind people can go to universities in general. So, very, very few people choose the profession of musician. So, all over the country, many of blind schools lost and they disappeared the course of musicians. And some blind students tend to prefer Western style music because shamisen or biwa music they feel little old-fashioned. So it's very hard for blind musicians to get special profession.
My name is Baluji Srivastav, and I'm from Inner Vision Orchestra. And the Inner Vision Orchestra is full of blind people from all over the world. They're Indian, Japanese, Iranis, and all kinds of musicians. So I've got two questions. The first one is, sorry for my Japanese, I don't know any Japanese. Does Goze means blind?
Yes.
Also, the second question is, were you reading in Braille?
Sorry, second question again?
So were
Were you reading in Braille?
Why?
Yeah. So were you reading? Yes, that was Braille you were reading from.
Yeah.
So the answer to the second question is yes. So the first question is, what is the actual meaning of?
Oh, yeah. There is a few academic theory, but originally Goze stands for Gozen. Gozen in Japanese means 通訳してもらっていいですか？ゴゼの語源についてはいろいろな説がありますが、一番よく言われているのはその午前っていう言葉から来ていると言われています。
午前っていうのは午前中の午前。
違います。オン前とか。
オン前。
ゴっていうのはオンで。
Alright, I see. Okay. So, yeah, just to translate that, there are various theories about the etymology of this word, goze, but the most common theory is that it comes from gozen. Go is the Japanese word meaning sort of honourable, it's often translated as honourable, and zen just means in front of, so the person in front of you, something like that.
その午前っていうのは要するに貴族とか位の高い人の前で演奏していたというところから来ている言葉です。
And it's thought that that comes from the fact that they were performing in front of aristocracy or people of, more elevated social status.
So it's a literal translation of enlightenment.
Sorry.
Enlightenment.
So what's the question?
He's saying it's like the literal, it's like meaning that they light up the people in front of them.
Well, I mean, yeah, there's no particular implication of light in it. It's just about being in front of someone.
Or the translation of inner vision itself.
Right. So that's your orchestra, inner vision. Yeah,
but the term.
Right.
The term, that's what I wanted to know. Why they're called Goze?
Because it means they are in front of people. It means to be presented in front of. They present before.
So basically, Goze itself does not mean blind or light.
It doesn't mean anything about blindness. It just means they're performing.
Okay.
Performing.
Right. So any performer will be called Goze.
Sorry,
any performer will be called Goze.
有名なゴゼさんの言葉で、ゴゼ歌とは何ですかという質問に対して、ゴゼが歌う歌がゴゼ歌であるという答えをしたゴゼさんがいる。だからゴゼさんというのはいろんな歌をミクスチャーさせて歌ってました。
So I'm not sure that it completely answers your question, but there was a famous reply to a question, what is a Goze uta, what is a Goze song? And the answer was just any song that is sung by a Goze. But I think Goze, the characters that it's written with are not the ones we discussed, because often different Japanese characters are attached to words which pre-existed. But the second character used means woman. Actually, I have no idea what the meaning of the first character is. I don't know if anybody knows. But it does specifically imply, anyway, a woman, the kanji that I use.
What's the Japanese word for blind?
Originally, mojin or mekura.
Mojin or
mekura. And the first Chinese character of Goze is invented in Edo period. It's a kind of 当て字です。はい。
Okay, so it doesn't really have any meaning.
No.
Okay. And it's Japanese.
Japanese, yeah.
Yeah. One thing about the Japanese words for blind is, I mean, you mentioned the term morjin, but it's become seen as a bit of a pejorative term, so you can't really use that anymore in Japan. So we often just say people who can't see, or men no mienai.
Thank you. That was very interesting and moving also. I'm intrigued by, at the end of your presentation, you mentioned your feelings about the terminologies used in inclusive education, and you felt that maybe that they were inappropriate because I seem to interpret it that you feel that blind people are being, in a sense, drawn into a dominant cultural system that undermines them, and that they have values that sighted people don't have, and that they should be appreciated for those values, and those values should be taught and allowed to develop and to be shared within the inclusive framework. Am I correct in
Yeah.
Okay, if that is the case, we know about tacit knowledge development, and in Jungian terms people talk about ancestral memory, and there are other areas where we speak about inherited knowledge and artistry. I'm really intrigued to know, did the musicians who were blind learn music in accordance with their own tradition, and did they tune their instruments in their own manner and in their own modes that were different from the classical tradition used elsewhere in Japanese music?
答え分かったんですけど、答えはいいですかね。まずそのゴーゼの修行は住み込みという形式で、その目の見えない親方の家に3年ないし5年目の見えない弟子が住み込むという形で修行をします。
So the way that they were trained, the Gozen, was that they would actually live with a master or a teacher for 3 to 5 years in their house to be trained.
で、プレゼンテーションの中でも述べましたように、その目の見えない人同士のその技術の伝達ですから、触覚と聴覚に依拠した、芸の伝え方になります。
So, and it was transmitted through this touching the sound and touching the colour. But and you were also asking, so is there a different way of tuning the instruments and different modes? その音階とかその楽器の調律はちょっと違うんですか？他の伝統とは。
そこはちょっと僕はあんまりわからない、音楽学の専門ではないのでわかりませんが、基本的にその三味線の音楽としては特徴、ゴーゼならではのそのやり方というのはないと思います。その伝達の仕方が少し違うというだけで。
So he says that he's not totally sure of the answer to your question about the different modes and so on, not being an actual musicologist himself, but he feels that it's probably in the same broad tradition as general shamisen playing.
Yes.
Do you have any?
I agree with that. Yes, as so-called music researcher.
So David is a musicologist, ethnomusicologist.
So musically, they'd be within the normative tradition, if you like, which I find in relation to the question or the statement about the values and about the worth of blind people. I find that really interesting because now in this culture, disabled people who would like to play music, and I don't mean just people with visual impairments, but people who are disabled or impaired in many ways, are very much encouraged to play music because of its health and well-being values. but they're encouraged to play within the normative cultural dominant system, which many people can't access for various reasons, and therefore they're excluded from gaining the benefits of normative cultural systems, which I find very intriguing, and I was looking for a connection there, but obviously there isn't one, because the people are playing within the tradition of the normative values, if you like, so they're encouraged to play within the normal classical tradition.
I think that's right, yeah. Okay, any more questions?
In the video presented, we saw footage of Mr. Hirose handling clothing and shoes, garments that I assume belong to Goze, and I was just wondering how you came to acquire those or had access to those.
その DVD の中で、その多分ゴーゼのものであった洋服とかを触っていたんですけど、それはどういうふうに手に入ったんですか？
プレゼンテーションの中で触れたその杉本菊江さんは1983年に亡くなったんですけど、そのお弟子さんが、1990年代まで生きていました。1990年代、1990で、その最後の杉本菊江さんのお弟子さんと交流があった方から治療の寄贈を受けました。
Right. So he mentioned Sugimoto Kikue, and her disciple continued to live into the 1990s, is that right? And he had some contact with someone who knew her, and so that's how he got hold of these items. And I'm assuming the items were on display in the museum as part of the exhibition that you organized, is that right?
Unfortunately, the exhibition I organized was a thematic, not permanent exhibition, thematic exhibition. So now almost all documented materials are now storage.
Right.
But I hope very, very soon I have another exhibition about Goze and Biwahoshi.
David,
Yes. About hello, Takahashi Chikuzan, we're now out of the Goze, but he's the blind male shamisen player who was the most famous early Tsugaru shamisen man. I was told in the 1970s, I heard him perform in 1978, but I was told by an academic in Japan that in the early 1970s, when Takahashi was in Tokyo, he wanted to have himself listed in the telephone book, not as a musician, but as amma, masseur. And I never understood why, but it made me think, is there something, even though he was about to become a very famous shamisen player among the young, among other things, was it embarrassing to be a musician for some blind people, and being a masseur was more appropriate?
I think maybe opposite.
I would have thought so.
Amma is a little embarrassing. And I think before World War 1940年代頃、その日本が戦争に向かう頃にやっぱり三味線の音楽芸とかがこう、禁止されて、高橋筑山が生活に困っている時に、あんまで生計を立てていたことがあります。
So in the 1940s, as Japan was at war, shamisen music was actually forbidden. I have no idea why. And so this musician you're talking about had to make a living from massage. So why was it forbidden? Shamisen music?
そのいわゆるエンターテインメントということで。
I see. I'm interested that nobody's mentioned a very famous blind musician from Japan, Tsuji Nobuyuki. Obviously it's a totally different tradition, but there is a blind pianist who is, world famous from Japan at the moment. He played in the proms, I think, last I don't know what the son is called. Have you not come across this? He's called Tsuji Nobuyuki, quite young.
Yeah.
Perhaps it's irrelevant to mention him, but I just sort of thought his name ought to be mentioned in this context.
And I remember one more episode. There was also famous shamisen player Miyagi Michio. He's very good at playing shamisen, and he visited London actually just after World War II. I think maybe 1947 or 48.
A little later, early 1950s.
1950s, yeah. And when he came to London, it's raining, and he heard the sound of rain and feel the atmosphere of the city of London, and he composed a very famous song, London no yoru no ame, that rains at night in London. It's very, very impressive.
Can I mention one more?
Yeah, please.
Miyagi also, he played koto as well as shamisen, and he wrote another piece in London. It was called Eihei no Kotai, the changing of the guards. From his hotel room and other places. In his hotel, he heard the rain on the window. And so you hear patterns in that piece like, it's raindrops hitting your window. And the changing of the guards, he does a very nice imitation. You hear the dum 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 dum.
On the shamisen.
So this was on the koto actually,
Right.
but a zither. But he did both instruments, and this is an example of one of the most famous blind musicians. Now I forgot about it.
Yeah, blind musicians like Tsuji and Miyagi are very, very good at using ears to listen carefully.
Right, well on that note, shall we go downstairs and have a glass of wine? So down one floor, and do feel free to carry on asking questions when we're down there. But yeah, thank you very much.